You know, I was giving a comment on my last video essay, um, the one about JoJo's and masculinity, and they said it was a great video essay, but they also asked me if I could talk about like the dynamics of different groups in JoJo's. You know what I mean? Like the Part 5 group or the Part 4 group or the Stars Crusaders. And honestly, I started thinking about the Part 5 group. And then I started thinking about Part 5 as a whole. And that's where I came to this video topic. Loyalty. Part 5 is a perfect representation of loyalty to me. 100%. And loyalty in multiple ways. A toxic loyalty and a more loving, nurturing loyalty. Because initially when I started thinking about the Part 5 group, the first one I thought about was Bruno. Bruno's the head of the group. He is the one who essentially got all of them and put them all together. And all of them are loyal to Bruno for one reason or another. But in that same breath, Bruno is also loyal to them because he had took on the role of essentially an older brother and a nurturing figure to them. And that's really, before I start like connecting people, I want to talk about Bruno and Fugo really quickly. Because I feel like those two, when you talk about loyalty especially, no one ever thinks about them, especially because Fugo left. But you have to also think, right? Bruno in that time period, he was a capo. Most gangster capos, if their subordinate disobeyed direct orders, said that he wouldn't join, said that it was a death wish, said that all of you were going to die, most of the time they would have had that subordinate killed. But Bruno, he didn't. All he said, if I remember correctly, all he did was disown him, say you are no longer a part of the gang, and leave. I feel like that was a sense of loyalty to him, because we've seen Bruno, he doesn't like to leave loose ends. That's one thing about Bruno. But in that same breath, he has enough love for Fugo to where he realizes that he wants them to leave. He wants them because he knows this is a death wish. He literally just faced Diablo. He knows how tough he is. He knows most of them are probably going to die. So he wants him to leave. And him leaving, in a way, was honoring Bruno's teachings, at least to me. Again, this is subjective. At least to me, it was honoring Bruno's teachings, because Bruno, he wants them to live a long life. He wants all the people around him to live a long life, because he's already taken on the figure of protecting them when he brought them in from the streets. And Fugo, I didn't feel that what he was doing was disloyal necessarily. I'll get into that later. But I do feel like in Part 5, that's where the word loyalty is most on display. It's most laid out in front of you, not only through the Part 5, not only through the Passion group that we follow, also La Squadra. You look at La Squadra, they are immensely loyal to each other. They had nothing, and they did everything for the boss. They were all loyal to the boss. That's the big overarching theme. They're all loyal to Diablo, but Diablo is loyal to none of them. Diablo is loyal to himself, and that's a play on his own character, because he inherits a body with two souls, meaning that he realistically does not have to rely on anyone except his physical self, because even if he's not out in public, he can still control the other half of his body by manipulating the other soul inhabiting it. And that's the whole thing. I was really thinking about that, because when I think about it, Doppio didn't know the full scope of everything he was entangled in. But I believe that, I've always said this, Doppio is evil, but I believe that Doppio, he was essentially, since he's always been joint to the boss, this idea of the boss for so long, he's never seen the boss from his own admission. He's always been joint to this idea of the boss for so long. Of course, he's going to have such a binding loyalty to him, and he's going to be the right-hand man. But that's another thing. I don't think anyone knew Doppio was even the right-hand man. See, that's what I'm saying, right? Part 5 is really of course, it's a story about fate, and that's blatant. Araki couldn't make the fact that it's a story about fate any more blatant. But the other theme mainly is loyalty, because even when I think about it, right? Because as I was sitting here trying to connect the dots, I realized the fights, these are fights of passion. You know what I mean? And when I say that, especially when you see La Squadra go against the disgraced Passion group, they're fighting both in the sake of loyalty, in a way. You know, at the start, the Passion group was fighting to keep Trish and protect Trish in loyalty to the boss, so that the boss could get his daughter back and protect her, at least under their assumption. La Squadra is fighting to get Trish because of their own people. One of their own was killed by the boss for even investigating and trying to figure out why they can't get more money or why they can't even get more benefits. So you're following this story with passion. This story filled with passion. And I just think it's funny that one of the more ironic things is, even when you look at Giorno, right? When part 5 starts, Giorno does not necessarily have loyalty to anyone. His parents have disgraced him. He of course owes the mafioso his life getting better, but his parents, he doesn't talk about them. He really stopped depending on his mom when he was 3. His stepdad used to abuse him. He has no loyalty. But then he meets Bruno. And this is again where I say the loyalty lies, but it's also a similarity in goals, because with the dynamic between Giorno and Bruno, it is an understanding of, we need to do this for the greater good. I also feel like that's why Bruno was so comfortable telling Giorno that he was dead and his body was just decomposing when they were in the car together, because Giorno knew once they even started, they were doing this for the greater good, what they believed would be better for Italy, their home, where they stayed, the people in the neighborhood, the kids in the neighborhood, the elderly. They believed it would be better. So when talking about their dynamic, when Giorno meets Bruno, this is the first time, at least that we know of, that he's meeting someone that not only holds a very similar and can understand the place that Giorno is coming from, like a very similar idea, and can understand the place where Giorno is coming from, he also holds the power to get Giorno in action to start his plan. That's where Giorno's loyalty lies with Bruno. But this is also the first time you're seeing Giorno have to be loyal to someone else. You know what I mean? And it's a very interesting thought when I think about it. And it's also, you can also link that to like Giorno and Abbachio's relationship some ways, because with Abbachio was he used to be a very outgoing person with a lot of dreams and goals and aspirations, but he never found someone to necessarily fuel those goals and give him the power to make a change within that city as a police officer. He found resentment and hatred, and through that he began hating his job and taking bribes, and that's how his partner ended up dying. And that's why Abbachio is the way he is now. He sees dreams as dangerous, goals as fickle. He only focuses on the mission, what's at hand, the day by day. He's not focusing on the long term. So when he meets Giorno, and Giorno, he's obviously focusing on the long term. He obviously has a plan. He obviously has this big overarching goal. Abbachio, he doesn't know if he can pledge his loyalty to him the way he does to the rest of the group, because he's worried that he's going to die soon, or he's going to get his dreams shattered and it's going to change him. Now, does this excuse Abbachio pissing in Giorno's tea? No. Again, I don't know what the fuck was wrong with him that day. I'm sorry. He could have just been a dickhead, but no. That's like being extra dick. Why are you trying to make him drink fluids? That's crazy. He's 15. But that's another thing too. I can't really... Well, I can say he's 15 because I'm a civilian watching an interpretation like a loose, super loose fictional interpretation of a mafia member joining the mafia. But when I think about it that way, no one in the mafia cares about their ages. To them, you're just another member. You're another gang member, and that's a part of the mindset Abbachio has. You know, when I actually start thinking about it that way. And that's why I feel like with everyone else, Abbachio, he can be, you know, pledge his loyalty to them and make sure they're protected with no second thought or anything. Because the rest of them, they have goals, they have dreams, but they're all focused on the mission at hand fully. They're not thinking to what's about to happen or what's going to happen. They're focused on what's going on right now in that second. Not to say Giorno necessarily isn't, but there is definitely times where Giorno is more so trying to plan things and he looks a little bit odder to everyone else. But even like, and then one of the reasons I also say part 5, it's the part of loyalty. You think about all the villains, all the people who were close to Diablo, not necessarily, and not even ever seen him, but were in his somewhat circle. So Cioccolata, Secco, Doppio, Diablo, if I remember correctly. And then the couple with Diablo, I think Diablo sent the couple. Yep, the couple and Carne, which was the notorious big user. Right? Everyone on that team. Think about it this way. Their loyalty, all of them, yes, they're loyal to the boss, but they're loyal for very selfish reasons, right? Except Carne, which he's more, I have a more symbiotic interpretation for him, but that'll be a little later. Of course, starting off with Cioccolata and Secco, they do it for the obvious freedom to operate where they have the freedom to hurt people as much as they want, the freedom to get their kinks off and get all that shit off as much as they want, and they get the chance to do it while making fantastic money. Of course they're going to join Passion. Of course they're going to become high members of Passion. But does that mean they're necessarily loyal to Passion, or are they loyal to their own goals? You know what I mean? With the couple, hold on. Give me a second. I'm about to do some research again. With the couple, nothing is known about their past for real, but we know that they're loyal to each other and that they all seek to do that. Those two, they seek to do it for each other. They seek it so that they can live a great life off the grid and kill people. That's what all of them do. The elite members of his squad, they're all people who do it for their own gain, not necessarily because they're loyal to a company. But you can also try to say that for everybody, but then when you look at everybody, there are loyalties within that group. When you look at the elite squad, I don't see loyalties within the group. I couldn't see Cioccolata being loyal to fucking Carne and the couple. I can't see that. Especially when I think about the fact that I don't remember correctly if the elite squad has even seen Doppio, but I know the execution squad has never seen Doppio because Risotto did not recognize Doppio when he first saw him. It was like a system that was always designed to fail, because at the end of the day, at the top, there was no real loyalty. At the top, there was structure at the top, but all the structure was coming down from people that weren't the boss. It was coming down from people that could easily misscrew and edit his words, but by doing that, they would die. And that's how the boss would send messages. He would send messages through fear, essentially, like most mobs would, I would guess, would work. You know what I mean? But even still, he's sending messages through fear. He has no loyalty with him. No one's ever seen him. And then when you look at the inside, that's where all the loyalty lies, within the characters that aren't necessarily for the boss and for Passion. It's a contrast that you see develop as the part continues. You see the part develop as the part develops. You see the contrast between selfishness and loyalty continue to clash. Even when you look at the Chocolata verse, what was it, Giorno and Mista, and then the Secco versus Bruno fight. Secco versus Bruno fight. Secco dumps Chocolata as soon as he sees that he lost, or that he's not strong, and that he's asking for help. He says he sounds pathetic. There was never any real loyalty to him, even though Chocolata made Secco that way. It's never any real loyalty to him. It's loyalty to himself, because he's with the strongest. He's at the top of the company, so now he's just looking for money and a way to get his kink off. And while looking at the opposite effect, you look at Giorno and Mista versus Chocolata. They're using insane combos because they trust each other, they have loyalty to one another, and they believe that the two of them can beat this man. They're using insane combos, and Mista trusts Giorno so much that I'm pretty sure, I forget what happened to Mista, but he went down and Giorno was there alone, and Giorno was able to corner him using a bullet that Mista shot. That's through trust and camaraderie. But I do want to talk about Doppio, right? Doppio and Diablo's relationship in particular, right? Because I spent a lot of time earlier really thinking about that like dynamic. And when I thought about it, I had realized a few things, okay? For one, I found that Diablo and Doppio's dynamic served a lot as someone who had what's that one syndrome when you get kidnapped and you start loving your kidnapper. Now, of course, I'm not talking about that syndrome one-to-one, but I do think Doppio somewhat fell into that, because at the end of the day, I believe Doppio did not have a problem committing these heinous acts, because I believe he was always well aware that some sort of very evil part lied within him. Like, so he had to be always aware. But I also feel that he did it out of pure loyalty for the boss, but also pure fear for what could have been done to him. I believe that Doppio, at the end of the day, loved the boss, but that was because the boss made it that way. Diablo, having Doppio inhabit his body at the same time he did, was perfect for Diablo. And honestly, I feel like I was finna make a connection to Fate, but if you want a Fate video, that's a whole nother thing. JoJo's has so many incidents of Fate, but that was perfect for Diablo, because now Diablo, he can operate at his complete worst. And I've talked about this before when I've talked about Diablo and how he has the whole Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. But the whole thing with that literally is that now he can act in his complete worst, while not, there is no time limit to how long it takes for him to transform. All he has to do is tell Doppio to do it, and Doppio will, because Doppio loves him. That's the only person who's been with him his whole life. Diablo having Doppio essentially he can kind of act like just how his stand works in general. He can linger in the background and just jump in at any point in time to give himself an unfair advantage. Like when we saw him he just slaughtered the fortune teller. He jumped in right on cue to back the fortune teller up before any cars come, put him in a dark alley, and make sure no one can see, and the fortune teller can barely see his face, but only sees this instant transformation that happens, right? Him having Doppio essentially solidified the idea that Diablo would never need anyone because he has everything he needs in his own body. And Doppio, being of such importance to someone so powerful with so much rank, with so much pull, it gives him this satisfactory boost knowing that he is the boss's favorite. He's his right hand man. He's who the boss goes to. He's the only one the boss goes to when there is a major problem that he needs cleaned up immediately by his own hands. So I believe that their relationship, it's built on one-sided loyalty, with the other side having a crutch essentially, so that they never have to face consequences officially for their actions in person. Doppio can do that. You need someone to go kill. Sure, Doppio, run by this person. I'll go kill Abbachio. Even though that was probably Diablo who did like the full killing, it looked like Doppio was running by because it was a small kid in a soccer uniform. But throughout part 5, there's so many different and intricate trails of loyalty that are told and weaved in different ways. You know, the idea, there are some that are weaved under the idea that you work for me, so necessarily you should always be loyal to me because I gave you money, I gave you a job, you would have been still on the street because of me. But there's also this idea of, I don't need any of you though, so if you act out of line in any way, shape, or form, I will kill you. So there isn't any loyalty from me to you, but there should be from you to me because you're indebted to me. That's Diablo's point of view. And on top of that, the way life always worked for him and the way fate always worked for him, it was a reasonable point of view for Diablo to think at that time, because he did. He gave all them jobs, places, and everything, and fate has never told him no. Everything he's ever wanted, he's gotten. So why wouldn't he think, y'all work for me, you're indebted to me? To me, it's clashing loyalty versus a stark selfishness that even in his last moments are still depicted when he starts body hopping and forgets about Doppio. And Doppio dies in Bruno's body as he calls out to the boss, asking to hear his voice one more time. Diablo never thinks or even mentions Doppio again at all. Throughout the rest of the series, after Doppio dies, I don't remember him mentioning Doppio at all. That's what he was supposed to do. That's what Diablo's thinking. And Doppio, like I was saying, some sort of Stockholm syndrome. He thought that they had this love and bond and loyalty that was really one-sided and manipulative. But yeah, that's really all I got. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. You know, we're on the road to 5K, so anything helps. And until next time, peace.